Hey everyone and welcome. Today we'll be going over the semifinals played in the biggest tournament in Valorant's history, First Strike. The games today were absolutely insane and likely contain the best pro series ever witnessed in the history of the game. These matches will decide who will be heading into the grand finals and is the sum of over a month and a half of qualifiers and hundreds of pro matches played, and what we're left with are the best 4 teams in both the European and North American regions. We're seeing brand new strategies and ways to approach the maps that are super strong, and best of all, these games are being played on the most recent patch, with both Icebox and the new Agent Sky enabled. So make sure to subscribe with bells on, as every day we'll uncover new meta tactics that are being unveiled by the top teams. And we're putting a ton of effort to make this happen, so we'd be grateful if you showed your support by liking and leaving a comment below with what map you're struggling with the most and would like to see some pro strats for. Our first match of the semifinals was absolutely insane, with who many widely consider to be the #1 team in Europe, G2 Esports. They faced off against Team Heretics, a relatively unknown team prior to this tournament that have started to make waves. Keep in mind that G2 hasn't lost a single game so far in this First Strike tournament, on top of never losing a best of 3 in the history of Valorant. So yeah, saying Team Heretics had their work cut out for them is definitely an understatement. Despite this, what we ended up seeing was probably the best professional match of Valorant played in this tournament so far. For our first map, G2 picked Ascent, one of their best maps as they sport an 85% win rate on it. In addition to this, a little known stat of G2 is they actually have a 92% win rate on pistol round in pro play. That's beyond impressive. And yet, I just want to highlight how they accomplish this with a very simple strategy on attack we can all do in our own games. Stay together and pressure a site as 5. The reason why this is so effective on pistol round is that all players have very little utility, little to no armor, and have relatively weak weapons, pistols. What this means is that defenders don't have the tools needed to get a ton of multi-kills on their own, such as spraying you down with a phantom, or a ton of utility to delay the push, or give them an edge in the fight. Having a man advantage becomes way more important because of this, and so simply attacking a site as 5 and looking to trade kill is one of the strongest strategies on pistol round. Now, G2 absolutely crushed the first half of Ascent, and it all boiled down to how effective they were at taking a site. They have a really unique approach to it, and we can all apply it in our own games. First, they only place one smoke on A site at switch. Then, they pretty much all just peek from A main together, watching heaven and site, while one person hugs the wall to the left, while walking to activate the switch and close the door. We can see the value of doing this on round 9. Again, instead of rushing the site, they really just look into A main together. Mixwell holds A heaven with an operator, a defender peeks, and he gets an easy kill. The next thing that's unique is that they don't play the post plant just from inside the site. Instead, they always play at least one player, most of the time more, in A main, and this is key. On round 5, you can see how it gives them a sort of emergency fallback plan if they can't hold the site itself. With the default plant on A site being seen from A main, even if you're smoked out, you can just spray down the plant location and throw all your utility as the enemy tries to defuse, and it's like shooting fish in a barrel. Heading into the second half, G2 were ahead 9-3, and it was looking like they were going to crush Heretics. Instead, what we got was a glimpse into what might just be the best attacking team in Valorant. Heretics on attack are filled with rotations, fakes, and high-level mind games. Commonly, they spread out and play default on attack, looking to apply pressure to pretty much every single area of the map. Check this out, they have 2 outside B garage, 2 A lobby, and Jett peeking mid. Jett gets picked off by an insane wall boost strat on the pizza box, so the defending Sage then looks to res her. After this, take a look at Heretics' setup on the minimap. They're completely spread out. 2 are looking to push into B garage, Sova is watching the push from A lobby, and Sage and Jett are top of mid. Just think for yourself, what in the world are Heretics supposed to do in this situation? The standard strategy in pro play would be to start looking to group and prepare to rush a site at around the 30-second mark. Heretics are not your average pro team though. Jett begins to run through their spawn to rotate and group with the B players. Meanwhile, Sage starts pushing into A main, while Sova sits top of mid. Sage then places a wall down and starts peeking aggressively. This is pulling G2's attention to A site, they're faking the A hit. So if you're G2, you're probably thinking, okay, it's an A hit, I should probably rotate. But to their credit, they actually predict it's a fake, and this is likely due to G2 having Sage so far up mid that she heard Jett running through spawn to B site earlier. Basically, G2 didn't bite. However, Heretics sent a single person Killjoy to slowly walk into B site as Sage distracted on A, which is just so unorthodox. This completely catches Mixwell off guard when he goes to peek into B site for intel. Now what happens next is subtle, but just so smart by Heretics. Killjoy peeks into defender spawn, looking to get a pick on A players rotating. Here's the thing though, Omen and Jet are just hiding in B garage despite there being like 30 seconds left in the round. At the same time, Sage is pushing onto A site. What in the world is going on? Here's what's happening. When Killjoy peeks defenders spawn, if he spots no players rotating, well then they know they should probably commit to hitting B site and Omen and Jet will begin moving in. However, if Killjoy makes contact with an enemy and actually loses the fight, Sage can continue moving into A site, securing it and getting on the flank, and Omen and Jet can then rotate off and plant A site at the last minute. This is what's so impressive about Heretics' attack side. There's so many moving parts that rely on high-level coordination, which is completely different than the more standard 5-man attacks we're used to seeing from the top teams. And this new approach to the game proved to be more effective, with Heretics getting the massive upset, winning the first map 13-10. Things were starting to look grim for G2 heading into the second map bind. This was Heretics' choice of map and they were actually undefeated on it with a 100% win rate. That being said, G2 are no slouch on bind with an 89% win rate of their own. In the end, we ended up getting a glimpse into a possible new defensive meta on bind that we're seeing from some of the top pro teams. Notice how G2 is playing 3 on B and 2 on A. Here's what's new. When playing 3 on B, a lot of the pro teams are starting to now play 2 inside of hookah. The goal is to deny the attackers from ever taking control of it. Then, if the enemy takes the site from B long, they'll rain down bullets from hookah into site. And this kind of strategy follows over on A site if they play 3 there instead. They'll actually place 2 people in showers, similar to that hookah setup. Again, this allows the enemy team to take A site by pushing through short A, but really denies the attackers from taking that much space in sight on the post plant. The defenders can then look to fight for the retake from showers, again looking to spray down on the attackers trying to plant out in the open. By the end of the game, it looked like G2 were coming back with a vengeance, playing extremely solid, taking the map 13-5. This led us into the final map split. This one game is going to decide which team is going to move on to the grand finals, and it was probably one of the best games of Valorant ever played at the pro level. The hype is real. Highly recommend you guys watch this game. Heretics started out on defense, and as we highlighted previously, they have a completely unique way of approaching split. What they do is use Omen flash on B main at the start of the round. They then throw a Sage slow, Omen then smokes the entrance, and Sage moves forward in order to wall it off. This helps give early intel and allows them to shut down any B main pushes. If no enemies try to push B main, well then they fall back and play 2 on B site. They will then have Raze playing B heaven really passively, willing to fall back and give it up. This is what's new. They're giving up mid control on split and are trying to lure the attackers into hitting B site from B heaven. This way, they essentially have 3 players ready to crossfire on the entry. Here's what's key to this though. They put Cypher on A site and then have him use his utility in vents and in A heaven. Again, the idea here is they're giving up mid control, and if the enemy decides against funneling into that death trap on B site, well then they will go vents, in which case they fall victim to Cypher's traps. This strategy proved to be extremely effective once again in this match against G2, the B garage setup denying the push from the enemy at the start of the round. This then forced them to start pressuring mid, B heaven is given up, and then they tempt the attackers to flood into B site. Once they do, the trap is sprung, and they look to frag out with their unexpected numbers. G2 is smart though, and not only adapts, but finds the specific weakness in this setup, attack A site from A lobby. You can see they aren't wasting their time or resources on the middle of the map or A heaven, it's just a straight 5-man rush into site. This works since Cypher has to place his utility to defend A heaven and the vents push, along with Heretics playing the 3B setup. It's through this simple A take that G2 start clawing back and taking some rounds. But Heretics then demonstrate they aren't a one-trick, they make adaptations of their own and stack 3 on A site. They only play 1 on B, Cypher, who actually placed all of his utility at vents and A heaven. These extra defenders ended up being exactly what Heretics needed to help stop the push on A site. They come out with a lot of trade kills, and once the dust settles, we find we're in a 1v1 clutch scenario with Mixwell on Raze against Pora on Cypher. And what we're about to see is a masterclass on how to clutch. Cypher hears Mixwell planting, which lets him know exactly where he is. He begins by placing a camera that overlooks the site. He then walks on rafters, and you'll notice he takes a gunshot right as he drops on the ground. This is a high-level technique to hide that you dropped, as the sound of shooting actually masks the sound of your feet hitting the ground. At this point though, he's in a tough spot. He knows Mixwell is somewhere in sight and has to decide on how to move in with the spike ticking down. But he smartly gets to safety and starts using his camera to try and spot for Mixwell. Again, he's patient, goes for a jiggle peek on elbow, then checks his camera again. This finally spots Mixwell, which is huge, as he can now sneak into sight knowing the enemy's location. It gives him the upper hand in reaction time as Mixwell peeks and Cypher knows where to expect Raze, but Raze doesn't know where to expect Cypher. The game was tied 6-6 heading into the second half, where we begin with a very important pistol round. And it's here Mixwell comes in super clutch, making sure to check his angles. He reads that Cypher is going for a lurk and goes for a quick jiggle right click with the classic. Then later on into the round, he has to hold A site against 3 attackers by himself and is able to trade 2 kills for his death, doing enough damage for his teammates to take the round after. However, Heretics start pulling out some of the most big brain attack strategies I have ever seen. At the start of this round, notice how they send 4 into B main. They purposely make noise by running on Sage's slow, and then all 4 of them just stand in B garage, peeking into sight. They're waiting for G2 to peek, and they nearly kill Sage when she does, but more importantly, they have revealed 4 enemies on the map to G2. From here, they do 2 extremely smart things. First, they have Omen at Ramen, and he runs to mid. This noise can be heard from B heaven, so it will sound like Heretics are rotating to mid from B garage. However, Omen then walks as he heads into sewers and goes towards A site. Meanwhile, the rest of Heretics all run full speed through spawn out of the enemy's sound range. Look at G2 on the minimap. They've totally bought into this bait, thinking Heretics are either still waiting in B garage or are hovering around mid. However, Heretics just straight bull rush as fast as they can into A site, taking it completely for free and getting the plant down. Next up, we see some of the highest level rotations possible in pro play. Just check this out. Heretics puts Sage at B main to throw a slow at the start of the round. This prevents G2 from peeking out and getting intel, while also making it seem like Heretics could be going for that B main push. Instead, Sage just instantly falls back and begins running through spawn to A. Simultaneously, Omen is smoking out mid to deny intel, and then just holds the flank in case of a mid push by the defense. From here, all 5 group on A site. Now, I know what you're thinking, okay, so then they just rush A site. Nope, they play it slow, taking control of A heaven. Then, once they have control of A heaven, they call to go for a fast rotate from A heaven all the way through vents through mid to hit B site. This naturally completely catches G2 off guard and they get the free plant down. Heading into round 22, it's 11-10 in G2's favor, and just look at the strat Heretics pulls out. They spread out across the map and importantly use utility and make noise both in B garage and A main. This prevents G2 from rotating off sites as either site could potentially get hit. At the same time, they smoke mid to deny intel there. They then group as 3 and start to walk up mid and sneak into vents. Contact is made, the trade kills come down, and it looks like Heretics are going for an A hit through vents. But no, this was all an elaborate fake. Raze and Reyna were hiding in B main with the bomb the whole time. G2 commits to the rotate, as we all would, and once again, they get a free plant on site. Heretics were just so unpredictable on attack, there was no way for G2 to get a proper read on them. This culminated in the game being 12-11 in Heretics' favor. If they win this round, they win the match, upset G2, and head to the grand finals. What we see is their standard default for mind games on attack. They spread out their players across the map, making noise at multiple locations. From here, they then play it slow, and as the round develops, you'll see that Cypher is able to sneak up ramps without being seen. However, he loses the gunfight in A heaven. Suddenly, Heretics are down a man, and it's not looking too good with time running down. But in this clutch moment, they bring out a fantastic strat. They silently group for a B site take. Omen then ults back of sight. This is strictly used as a scouting tool, looking for where the enemy is playing, and it works, and they now know where breach is. Then, check out how clean this execute is. Reyna blind comes out for the breach. Sage wall gets placed down to block sightlines from B heaven, and an Omen flash hits default spot behind pillar. This all happened in the course of a few seconds, showing fantastic coordination, and breach simply had no chance at fighting back. From this, they're able to get the spike down and end up in a post-plant scenario, and I just want to highlight exactly what we should all be doing in our own games in the post-plant. Heretics make sure not to stack in the same location, playing different spots in sight. This allows them to swing from different locations on contact and create crossfires. This ends up being too much for G2 to overcome in a 2v3 scenario. Nukai gets the ace on Raze, and Heretics win the match 2-1 over G2 and head to the grand finals. What's so impressive about this win though is that usually when a relatively unknown team gets an upset win against the clear favorites, it's either because they had some sort of cheese strat or the favorite team just played horribly. This was not the case. G2 played fantastic and Heretics showed immense depth, versatility, and mastery of the maps. I genuinely think it might be possible that Heretics, this completely unknown team prior to this tournament, might actually be the best team in Europe coming out of it. Either way, it's going to be an absolutely insane grand finals and I could not be more hyped for it.
Woo!
Yo, what are you doing, Jack?
I'm celebrating my favorite team getting a huge historic win. Go Heretics. Didn't you say that they wouldn't win against G2, Mr. Going with the stats?
Well, you see, punditry is hard and, mea culpa? Now, get out of my room. Anyways, even though that first series was a gigantic emotional roller coaster, it was still only the first set played that day. We of course need to go over the other semifinals match to decide Heretics' next opponent. FPX versus SUMN FC ended up voting to play Split, Haven, and then Bind, and we're going to be skipping to Haven here, as the Split game, while exciting, didn't reveal any strategy that hasn't been covered elsewhere during the tournament, or interesting enough to warrant the dive. Haven, however, showed off some great stuff from these teams. Getting right into it, one thing to say right off the bat was just how intense and back and forth this whole set was. It felt like every single pick mattered the entire match, and the big difference makers for both teams were how they threw variations of standard strats to create openings. Just like in round 6 where SUMN FC set up this C-take. The round starts with SUMN creating some mild noise towards A, probing what FPX might be doing, weary of defender aggression that had been shown earlier in the half. They quickly rotate everyone to C and set up this way. The first thing to note is this very non-standard garage smoke. It's really deep, and I think it's to bait defenders to maybe push through or stand in it, or maybe it's some sort of like fake out for a window player. It's kind of hard to say. What is easier to make out is what the other smoke is for. Every single time you see an Omen smoke on top of main box, someone is going into it. No matter what. SUMN know that, FPX know that, and now you know that. And that's intentional. Instead of smoking main or splitting up the site in some way, SUMN smoke the box and send their Omen to create the ultimate distraction. You see, as long as that smoke is up, FPX have to respect the fact that someone can be in it. And it can be very annoying to anyone on site, making this smoke the most immediate priority focus. To add to that, Mystic gets a pick and allows his teammates to control the bomb site entering the post plant. This is a very innovative way to leave the site open to avoid getting snaked through smokes, but also creates massive sudden impact. SUMN handily get the trades they need to secure the round going forward. Haven would play a lot like this overall. It really felt like a slugfest where each team made massive sacrifices for each round win, and that was showcased brilliantly just 2 rounds later on round 8. One thing I see people not understanding about Valorant overall is that ultimates do not need to be saved for purely full buy or high odds rounds or situations. In fact, many ults in the game can supplement gear disadvantage in eco situations and allow you to snake thrifty wins. Look at the econ here at the start for FPX. They have enough to do a share of light armor buy and still be financially okay going into the next round. Now, I'm sure at first they didn't really expect to get a whole lot out of this. Obviously, you want to win every round, but understanding when you're at a bad spot is key to making good decisions. FPX start off by playing the odds and leaning towards SUMN wanting to snake B control to command great map advantage with their gear difference. SUMN take fast mid control and launches the owl drone to scout the site. Zippin on box says here's that, and Shadow takes the peek from A connector. Look at the ult economy for FPX at this moment. Zippin has something in his pocket much better than any rifle, the showstopper. Shadow sees 4 lads outside of B and falls back, and Zippin takes his chance to blow open the round by unleashing his ultimate and grabbing a quick double kill. This destabilizes the offense and suddenly swings the momentum massively in favor of FPX. Though this round is no guarantee, someone could have made the right choices and still had a chance in this round, but either out of worrying about the dropped weapons or not wanting to play mid-round calls, they decided to continue forcing a B hit, allowing Meadow to get a huge 2-man trade, leaving FPX in a 3v1 scenario to win the round. So even in a round where the stats say that FPX shouldn't win this round at any point, one well-timed ultimate was able to swing the advantage, and that's huge. Despite some errors along the way, SUMN FC showed great play across Haven. Considering their early slip on Split falling behind the series 1-0, they successfully defeated FPX and pushed it to a final deciding map, Bind, to decide the fate of the series. So a cool narrative going into Bind was some trash talk on Twitter between FPX's Angel and SUMN FC's Mystic. As we've covered, FPX have been bringing a lot of Viper to Bind and trying to create a meta spot for her kit on that map. In this exchange, Angel thought Mystic wasn't playing true Viper by crushing on an Omen alongside. Fast forward to the decider, and Mystic, a man of his word, brings the Viper while FPX went a different direction. This made the second round almost poetic as Mystic single-handedly disassembled FPX with this Viper A defense. The setup here is interesting, using the Viper wall to cut the site in half diagonally into showers and the standard one-way Viper smoke on top of tall box on short. This is of course also the standard location for the Omen one-way, but due to the smoke size differences compared to Viper, the one-way is even more defender favored than usual. The round starts with a little trade scrap over on B, leaving the field even at 4-4. FPX isn't sure what to do to try and get the plan and force some economic damage early, but begin the rotation back towards A, eventually getting spotted by an owl drone and showers. Omen smokes short, creating further delay in the attacker's plans as they congregate for the A push. FPX tried to create an opening with a paranoia through U-Haul and a ballsy Omen teleport, but get immediately shut down as the Viper utility is deployed. The one-way smoke combined with the snake bites create a one-way road to doom for FPX as they get dismantled by Mo, with Mystic giving him the alley-oop for all those assists. Gotta love the disrespect to take a style pioneered by the team you were facing and throw it in their face in a pivotal game. In the end, similar to how Heretics simply overwhelmed G2, SUMN FC came roaring back on their second map and simply put FPX on the back foot and kept them there. Even though FPX had great rounds throughout and by no means played bad, the momentum carried over from Haven and SUMN FC just couldn't be denied. A big thing that stands out is that FPX have been thriving off a great entry presence from Angel in this tournament. In previous series, Angel was averaging 10 plus first bloods, taking the weight off of other players, but here he ended the series with only 5. Now, first bloods aren't the only job as an entry, but even in later round executes, he was being thoroughly stopped by SUMN, which seemed to deflate the offensive potency of FPX significantly. It's crazy to think that the two huge favorites lost in such a convincing fashion. One of the major criticisms of EU Valorant to this point is its lack of interest in terms of contending top teams. It used to be the revolving door of G2 winning everything or Liquid or FPX taking a trophy, but now the paradigm has shifted. SUMN FG are legit, and honestly I feel bad for underrating them in yesterday's predictions. They earned this final spot.
Jumping into the first North American semifinals match between TSM and Team Envy. TSM were the favorites heading into this one, being the #1 ranked team in all of North America, but Team Envy is no pushover, being ranked 3rd. TSM had the first map pick and went with Ascent, which they sport a 79% win rate on over 52 pro games, while Envy is sitting 20% lower at 59%. Surprisingly, despite this, the game was very much back and forth throughout the first half. TSM would win a couple rounds, then Envy would snatch some back, and eventually we landed at an even 6-6 rounds heading into the second half of the game. More of this back and forth action occurred until Wardell finally found his rhythm with an operator on Jet, on defense, on Ascent. He just started to take over the entire map. Round 17, he starts out looking into B main for 2 early picks onto Envy, putting them in a 3v5 scenario immediately. Next round, he swaps location to A site where again he aggressively peeks. Despite being flashed, actually lands the shot and legs the Reyna. Envy gets scared off and decides to rotate through mid for a B hit. Wardell follows and ends up with a rare miss, but shortly makes up for it with a cheeky quickscope peek onto Omen shortly after, with his crouch key definitely being stuck and him having to spam it. Envy on a save round then looked to rush A site, but again, Wardell is there to rain down that one-shot cannon from A heaven. This ended up leading to a match point. Envy has to win this round. TSM chooses to play retake on A very common theme we're seeing among the top pro teams on Ascent. And what we ended up seeing was a common problem Envy had with playing on the post plant. They played far too heavy in A site, not playing from A main like we're seeing a lot of teams do when defenders give them the free plant on A site. TSM then shows exactly why pro teams are shying away from this style, immediately punishing the aggressive stack on site and begin flooding in. Without any crossfire being set up from A main by the attackers, the players on site get overwhelmed and have no fallback plan once they lose to the retake. This led into the second map of the series where Team Envy picked the map Split. This is their strongest map by far with a 74% win rate, but TSM is also competent on the map with a 70% win rate of their own. Wardell was on Jet again, and this time TSM were the ones starting on defense. Wardell then chose to do an operator rush by only buying a single smoke on round 1. What this does is if you lose the first round, you then just full save on the next one, and you end up with exactly 5,000 credits on the third round, enough to buy the operator despite losing the first 2 rounds. This economic plan proved to be pivotal as Wardell held this off angle on the right side of B heaven, overlooking mid to great success. Not only getting the pick on round 3 into then actually landing a crazy leg shot on Breach shortly after, forcing them to retreat, but also another pick using the same off angle on the following round. Then, in typical Wardell fashion, he starts rotating where he's playing with the operator, making him unpredictable. He peeks into A lobby from ramps and gets that early pick. He then falls back and is able to hold A heaven with the operator successfully, a position that is actually one of the harder spots to snipe from on Split. Round 9, he then switches it up again, aggro peeking into mid, relying on his dash to escape to B heaven if he gets into trouble, and yes, he did just land that wallbang onto Omen. In the end, Envy go for a nice split attack on A site, but again, we see Wardell in the right place at the right time, landing those key op shots shutting down the push. Wardell is just nasty with the operator when it comes to playing Jet on defense, and this resulted in TSM heading into the second half up 9 rounds to 3. At first, it actually wasn't looking too good, with TSM repeatedly trying out a split attack onto A site from vents in a lobby that just kept getting shut down by Team Envy. But TSM was smart not to drop too many rounds trying to force it and swap to start hitting B site using Raze's ult to entry frag every time it was up and having great success. They also made a smart adjustment to their previous failing A site split attack. They made sure to start sending 3 players to take control of ramps and then A heaven first. Then once they had control of this area, the mid players could start to push in from vents. This fixed the previous issue they were having of getting crossfired from ramps in A heaven and let them successfully break into A site. In the end, TSM took the map 13-5 in convincing fashion and the series 2-0 and will be heading into the grand finals.
My friends and lovely individuals watching this video, I know thus far has been a crazy breakdown of some of the best pro Valorant we've seen to date. I got good news and bad news. Good news is that this Sentinels and 100 Thieves match might just be the best match of the day. Bad news means there's once again a lot to go over. Luckily, this match was an utter bloodbath, just like I predicted, so we're not going to be looking through the world's most complex strategies, just more or less gawking at the high level of play going on. Now, while Icebox was indeed chosen as the first map, I gotta be honest, there's next to nothing to go over here. These are quite literally some of the first pro matches played on this map, and considering the frag first, strat later playstyle of these two teams, this first map could be best described as, alright boys, I got it, let's rush the site and see how it goes. Brilliant. 100 Thieves were able to win it in overtime 14-12 and took an early 1-0 lead in the series. It's a fun game, but absolutely dry in terms of strategical depth, so we're just going to jump straight to Haven and see just how much Phoenix has gone up in value in the eyes of the pros and why that is. So, shocker, Phoenix is good. We knew that, and when I did my pro tier list a while back, I said Phoenix was just waiting for a meta shift to go from A tier agent to jump straight into S tier. And honestly, in First Strike, people have been piloting Phoenix at an S tier level. His impact everywhere is absurd, and at this point I find it weird that more teams aren't utilizing his talents. Phoenix is the perfect entry character, and that's showcased wonderfully here in round 18. At the start of the round, Sentinels scout forward down C with the Owl drone, allowing Sick to get his ult orb and bring the running back online. Once the Phoenix ult is ready, it's time to execute the easiest C take known to man. Send in Sick as the one-man wrecking machine, smoke garage, smoke spawn, and have Sick clear everything. Owl drones, that's the past. We have man drones, baby! Sick gets all the way to spawn, spotting Steel and allowing Sinatra to put in work with the Silva ult to get the kill. In all seriousness, this opening of the way with Phoenix allows Sentinels to secure immediate site control and know there are no weird lurks set up, and so that they can set up the deep long post plan. 100 Thieves attempt to counter man drone with their own Phoenix ult, but while effective it just wasn't enough, only getting one pick and leaving it in a 4-on-4 long plant fight. Sentinels are able to shoot the smoke much better than the Thieves and sweep up the round easily. Moving on to round 21, we see a prime example of what Sentinels do. This is textbook Sentinels Valorant and its beauty and simplicity. Rush hard, frag harder, and overwhelm their opponents. When Sentinels hit their stride, they are simply unstoppable, and we saw glimpses of that in this Haven game. Here it's simple as can be. Start the round, scout with an Owl drone, and then rush B. They know that they have an econ advantage here, so they want to just run it down 100 Thieves and not give them any room. While like most tiers, when they take B, they move to the A connector side, and instead of leaving B open for defenders to retake and fighting from mid, they instead defend the post plant from B site and the A side connector. It's super strong when executed well and makes the average B take so much less risky. Overall, this Haven map was hype. It was great watching these teams continue what they started on Icebox, just throwing giant punches at each other and seeing who would give up first. On Icebox, it was 100 Thieves who was victorious. On Haven, it was the Sentinels. So now we go to Bind to see who will prevail on the last map of the semifinals. Now, a cool part of NA Valorant specifically is the extreme proliferation of the Stinger in eco rounds. It seems like EU prefers to use the Spectre or Ghost in these situations, but in NA you see a lot of Stingers and Frenzies and low econ buys. The Stinger is crazy good. It's a 1000 credit laser beam of doom that can shred full armor agents while you strafe corners like it's Nuketown. Even at range, this thing is unreal sometimes, if the burst fire RNG is in your favor. So instead of saving here, Sentinels instead try for the force buy Stingers to steal a round from 100 Thieves. Right away, Sentinels want to W key B. What else can you really do in this situation? I don't think 100 Thieves were ready for this force rush. Dicey gets the immediate operator pick but sees the boys running it down behind him, and Sinatra skirts around the corner, gunning down Ascent in the process with the power of the Sting, baby. At this point, Dicey just wants one trade before he accepts his Stinger fate, but the Roomba from 6 swoops in and distracts him enough for Sinatra to get the second Stinger frag of the round. So, Sentinels open up the first 10 seconds with a 2-for-1 trade, one Stinger worth 1,000 creds for a Phantom and an Operator worth 7,700 creds, before armor and utility as well. That's how powerful the returns on Stinger buys can be. But it suddenly swings back to 100 Thieves momentum-wise, Hiko and Steel grabbing huge picks at Sinatra and Sick, stranding Sentinels in a 3v2 Stingers versus the world situation. But the Stingers shouldn't be underestimated. Shazam and Dapper managed to make the 1v1s work despite the huge deficit, and take 2 more Stinger picks for their side, making 100 Thieves wonder why they bothered buying rifles instead of embracing the SMG meta. For the price of 3 Stingers and light armor, Sentinels outduel the full bot 100 Thieves and win a miracle thrifty. Despite these brief moments, 100 Thieves were the better team I'm buying this time. This map was wild, by the way. Probably the best individual map played in NA First Strike period. This one was a must-watch for pure entertainment and the sheer skill on display. In the end, 100 Thieves scratch out their second consecutive BO3 series win against Sentinels, knocking out the NA Juggernauts and landing themselves a huge finals appearance against TSM. Sentinels played great in this tournament and in this match, but it's clear to me that a lot like Team Liquid in EU, their simplistic strats are the source of their brilliance and also their downfall. It's simply unreliable to hope to totally outfrag the enemy team and run them over before they could even blink. I'll be curious to see how much they improve going forward with such a talented team, but it's clear strategical depth will be their easiest flaw. So that was the craziest semifinals in Valorant's short history, and to my mind, I can only think of a handful of better tournaments I've watched in CSGO, and I've been watching for years. The dust has settled, and tides have been felled. EU and NA are ready to crown their champions. Tomorrow, the upstarts Team Heretic and SUMN FC face off in Europe, and in North America, Team Solo Mid and 100 Thieves fight to make a statement that they are the new #1s in town. Let's get into our predictions. Firstly, I need to take the European L here and acknowledge the sheer skill of Heretics and SUMN FC. They both showed immaculate play in the semis and quarters, and at this point, all bets are off. If both teams perform as they did today, whoever wins will be the new #1 team. I gotta say, the Battle Sage main himself LOL has single-handedly revived my faith in Sage as a character. He is a star player playing a support like a duelist and dominating while he does. If Team Heretics continue their innovative shot calling and amazing individual play, they can walk away with this trophy easily. SUMN FC on the other hand are just as strong. Doma and Mystic are an awesome 1-2 core, sometimes winning rounds all by themselves and showing impeccable individual skill. SUMN FC need to keep up their ferocious NA style of fast-paced offense and not allow Heretics to play the methodical style that's gotten them to this point. If they can do that, then they can win this championship. Over in North America, it's all bets off. 2 of the most individually skilled lineups are going to show up tomorrow and have a titanic battle. The key win conditions for 100 Thieves are the crippling flanks from Nitro and world-class anchoring from Hiko on defense, and most certainly, the godlike entry performances from Asta need to continue. Over on TSM, they need Wardell to play his godlike operator game and for some bros that have consistent impact as their clutch factor and god tier lurker on defense. This is the match that can go all 5 maps, and honestly my body is ready for the pure, sloppy NA Valorant to enter my frontal lobes. We'll be right here the morning after the finals to give you guys all the details on how these matches played out. Let us know who you think will win First Strike in the comments down below. Make sure you like the video as well, and subscribe for more awesome content just like this. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care.